this week on Dirt.
The glory days live on. In this Hall of Fame year, tradition continues. The torch has been passed.
Doug Logan is on a well-deserved vacation, so joining me, a familiar name and face, Larry Nuber. Larry, Outlaw Week in New York State is always interesting. 1992 was no exception.
Andy, always very interesting. Always a lot of news, but unfortunately the biggest headlines were the weather. Now, the weather has dogged the Outlaws all year long. They've lost 25% of the races when they pulled into Middletown Sunday night. Yep, you guessed it, more of that stuff that plummets from the heavens. And this was after a fairly long drive from southern Pennsylvania on Friday night, where they had been, of course, rained out again.
Well, the Outlaws did get to run a little later in the week. We'll see that a little later in the show. But first, Larry sets the stage.
This is what the drivers encountered. Lake Orange County. Suitable for power boats, maybe. Fortunately, it does drain off, and in heavy rain periods, the infield water can rise to depths of 3 feet. A near-driver tragedy is the season's most emotional story. It's about one of the most legendary drivers of all time. This rain turned thoughts from racing. It was a time for reflecting, particularly in the wake of the very pleasing news that Doug Wolfgang, seriously injured a couple of months ago, is finally coming home. Some very real human drama saved his life. All those involved are comfortable enough now to talk. And what you'll see next is not usual TV fare. Being practiced, no action video exists. But the human drama so captivating, we live it now through those heroes.
They have some large implement tires in the infield, and Doug clipped one of those with his left front, and it tore the left front wheel off the car, and the car went up in the air. When it slammed down, it looked like maybe his foot slammed down on the throttle or something, because the car actually accelerated, and with the left front wheel being tore off, he had no brakes. He hit the wall so hard, it was unbelievable. It looked just like an Indy car. You know how when they'll hit a crash wall, they splat right on the wall, and both right side tires broke off the car and went flying through the air, and you know, that's about as hard as I've ever seen anybody hit a crash wall in a sprint car.
Was the fire, did it erupt immediately, and was Doug ever conscious, best you could tell?
No, Doug really wasn't conscious. At one time he did move in the car after a couple minutes, but it was just basically he raised his arm up and laid it back down very gently. The fire itself, I saw some pictures that were taken from the grandstands right after he hit the wall. He was still sliding down the track. The right front corner of the car was on fire from where the dry sump tanks, you know, ruptured. The main fire, after he hit the wall, I jumped on my four-wheel quad runner and went out on the racetrack. I knew he was going to be hurt, and I wanted to go out there and try and help him. And about halfway out, I seen the fire crew run up and spray a little bit of fire underneath the car. And as soon as they sprayed, the thing really erupted. It looked like maybe there'd been a pool of alcohol.
Was it foam or water they sprayed on a crash scene?
No, it was neither. It was dry chemical. And as soon as they sprayed that, it blew the fuel around, which made the fire just enormous. And the people that first attacked the fire were, they didn't have real good fire gear on, so they had to get out of there because it got so big and hot so fast they couldn't stay close to the car.
Well, the car, I was way out in the pit area, and somebody yelled fire, and I looked down there, and the car was in a blaze, about a 20 by 20 area, and Wolfie was right in the middle of it, and I kind of slowly walked down there, and my father mentioned to me, you better not go down there because it was a pretty bad situation, and I went ahead down there, and as I got there, I thought, you know, this is in the 90s, and we're putting men on the moon, and here's going to be a guy burned to death within feet from me, you know, and I thought that, you know, how could this happen? And about that time, Steve Beitler walked into a blaze. I mean, literally walked into a blaze, and it seemed like an hour, you know, before he come out. And I was dumbfounded and didn't know what to do, and actually didn't do much. When Beitler come back out, I figured somebody else a little bit more equipped with a racing suit on, you know, or something better get in there and help. And I helped a little bit. Somebody got him out from the other side of the car. I don't know who it was. I was trying to get the wheel off from the left side of the car, and somebody moved him out from the right side of the car, and I seen his rear end come off the seat, so I just put my arms under his rear end and helped boost him up. But actually, if there was a hero under this situation, it'd definitely be Steve Beitler.
I remember turning around looking at the car, and it really scared me because I didn't think we were going to get dug out then. As big as the fire was, as long as it had been burning, as long as he'd been in the car, you know, you got a terrified feeling that you were so helpless. You couldn't get it out. You couldn't get him out of the car. The fire was getting bigger, but I knew if we quit, there was no chance at all. He had zero chance of survival if we quit.
Well, Larry, you have to be brave to drive a race car, but for Steve Beitler to save another driver's life, that's courage personified.
Sure is.
What's Wolfie's condition?
Well, dramatically improved, Andy. He's on his way home. He did have third-degree burns on his legs, very serious burns to his fingers, not the loss of them as previously reported, and he's working to improve some damage he suffered to his lungs.
Good news indeed. And good news in just a moment. The engines get fired up and we go racing. Stay tuned.